Okay, hello again. I'm gonna just a couple of quick announcements. I want to recognize Dr. Levandy here, who started and supports the Levandy program on aging track and aging in the School of Social Work. And I want to recognize Dr. Monson in the back corner, who was the chair of Family and Community Medicine and is the author of this fantastic book called Optimal Aging. So you can get a signed copy if you hurry. And she just gave me a handout that I think everybody would appreciate called Essentials of Aging Optimally. So pick up one of those for yourself. That would be great. And now I am going to talk a little bit about ageism. It's a perfect topic for today, to be able to make the link between ageism and age-friendly communities. It was a brilliant move on the part of the planning committee, I think, to tuck me in between this morning's panel and the panel that's going to follow me. They're going to talk about aging, age-friendly communities, age-friendly state, age-friendly communities. And by the way, MSU has been designated as an age-friendly university. And now we need to really make it a reality. I think we're doing a great job, but there's a lot more work to be done. A lot of good work being done by AARP. Appreciate you being here today. Ageism is at the root of so many of our troubles, along with sexism, racism, other negative isms. It's at the root of elder abuse, employment discrimination, a Medicaid bias towards institutional versus home care, age-unfriendly communities, low self-esteem and quality of life. It is at the root of how we define old. At what age do people become invisible? Anybody, a lot of older adults in this room, ever felt invisible? And when is it that people start to think that they need and even have an obligation to make your decisions for you? And why is this? In my view, ageism violates basic ethical and democratic principles that we are all created equal. Speak louder, she says. Okay, is that loud enough? Yeah. Okay. So, it misses the point that we all should have an equal chance and equal justice and an equal shot at quality of life, no matter what age we are. So one of the most important things I want to say today is that ageism really undermines much of what we in this room hold dear and what we hope to achieve with our one glorious lives and within our communities and our families and our world. So if we want to shatter elder abuse, employment discrimination, age-unfriendly communities, and more, we really need to attack ageism. It is, I was talking with somebody earlier today, it is so insidious in our culture that we're not even aware of it. We're raised with it, socialized to it, so we don't recognize it, even though it is all around us. So if ageism is at the root of all of these nasty things, what is at the root of ageism? And Dr. Chopik touched on this a little bit earlier. So I'm going to argue that one big reason is denial, fear of aging, because it's usually framed in negative terms, all about decline and heartache. Some people think it's the result of our capitalistic society and not seeing older adults as productive or having any economic or social value, which couldn't be further from the truth, because older adults actually are the biggest contributors to our economy that there is. So The next big reason, I think, which Dr. Chapek did mention, is the fear of death. How many here are really looking forward to growing old? Couple of like half raised hands. So invariably there are one or two people who are seriously looking forward to it. And they're kind of a rare breed, but invariably somebody will say it beats the alternative.
Right.
Which is a good line. I use it myself. I think that's true. However, not everyone feels that way. Some of you have heard some of my stories. A few years ago, my closest friend took her own life. She did not feel that growing older beats the alternative. And to an extent, I really understand why she did it. She had major challenges, including a progressive degenerative disease. Still, she was beautiful. She was kind. She was a gifted artisan. She had 2 children, a wonderful mother. No idea what an exquisite person she was removing from this planet, or how much pain it would cause everybody that cared about her. I find polar thoughts that coexist really fascinating. For example, somebody can be really strong and really fragile at the same time. She was one of the most strongest people I ever knew, and yet so fragile. It's possible, really, to hold completely opposing ideas simultaneously. And aging is kind of like that. Most of us are afraid of aging. It is, after all, a pretty good indicator that we're getting closer to physical decline and death. We deny it, we fight it. It's about wanting to be who we were, not who we are, and who we are left still potential to be something even greater. We don't want to age, but we don't want to die either. So therein lies the conflict, right? How do we reconcile these two thoughts? And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about. And I'm going to kind of move through this quickly because I've got a couple of people watching me here, keeping us on schedule.
You're good.
So before I move on, I'm going to just ask you to take a look at this field of dandelions. And the next time you see a dandelion, I want you to remember this little lecture here. How many people really like dandelions? Okay, I love dandelions. How many people here as a kid picked them and gave them to your mother? Huh? Lots of us, right? We thought they were beautiful. She thought they were beautiful. But then what do we, as older adults, what do we do every spring? First thing we do when we get up, huh? We spray them with chemicals, we dig them out, we try to get rid of them, but what happens the next year? They come back again, don't they? They can even grow out of concrete, I swear, right? Right? They are resilient. And that is how we need to be. In Japan, dandelions are called tampoko. The Japanese regard them in a very positive way. It's the name of a popular singing group, the title of love songs, the name of a kindergarten class. Why? Because they see them as having strength and resiliency and a beautiful burst of color every spring, showing us new life. So next time you see a dandelion, don't step on it or spray it with chemicals or Roundup or pull it out. Just remember this little talk here. So every good lecture has, objectives, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but this is what we're going to talk about. What is ageism? Examples, so that maybe if you're not noticing them now, you will after you leave this room today. I really hope to just plant a seed and provoke some discussions that will take place after you leave here. Give you some things to think about. We are uniquely positioned here to have a great impact on how we and others age. And I think the possibilities are really exciting. So, 3 definitions. I included Dr. Butler's, the top one there, because he's an icon in the field of gerontology. And he's the one that is always credited with coining the term ageism. But I actually like Palmer's, who's also a gerontologist, the bottom definition. It's slightly different. It emphasizes that all age groups are subject to discrimination and the possibility of favorable discrimination as well. It's an interesting phenomenon that young people think aging is bad, as Dr. Chopik mentioned. It means getting old, physical deterioration, pain, and then death. This is what young kids will tell you. Yet most old people say they are in good health and their lives are good, even if they're in pain, even if they have multiple chronic conditions. How many in this room have a little bit of arthritis? How about a little high blood pressure? How about bad vision? Okay, right? Yet, how do you rate your life? How would you define your health? What kind of health do you think you're in? Pretty good, right? Why is it? You know, we adjust, we compensate as we go. I got my glasses in 5th grade, right? So every year I get a stronger pair. Big deal, right? We adjust. We have to be like Dr. Seuss, who said, I'm in pretty good shape for the shape I'm in, right? As you reach a certain age, it's likely that you're going to get more and more of these messages that you really should just get out of the way. Okay? Make room for the younger people. We hear this in settings all the time. We hear this at the university, right? And at the same time, we get the message that you're a burden. I have to include me, we are a burden on society. So these polar opinions really exist simultaneously, these mixed messages. What are we supposed to do with these? We're surrounded by ageism at all levels. There, at every level, it's everywhere, it's all around us, it's hard to escape, it becomes part of our psyche, and we buy into it. As I said earlier, it's insidious. Bill showed several greeting cards, all of the negative greeting cards. You can go and look at them. That's starting to change a little bit. The language we use, even without knowing it, the enduring myths and stereotypes, it shows up in many ways, in multiple arenas. Now, individual, this is where you look at yourself. Let's make this personal. This is where you say, oh, I'm too old for that. You know, or you look in the mirror and you go, oh my gosh, I look exactly like my mother now, right? Which my mother was a beautiful woman, but applied to me, it's not the image I want to really see. So, and the interpersonal, how we relate to one another. Same thing, you're too old for that. You're too old for that. How about this one? You really look great for your age. How does that make you feel? You know, as Lori pointed out, couldn't we just stop at the word great? You look really great, right? Because it implies that you don't look as bad as other 70 or 80 years old people, right? So we have to watch our own biases here. And when you get up to the institutional and the societal level, now Bill did not talk about this, so I have something he did not mention. But just think of these examples here. Abuse, adult abuse. And who was it? I was just talking to somebody here about adult abuse. Only 1 in 6 suspected cases of abuse are reported, and very few of them are prosecuted. Why is that? We would never allow that to happen with kids if we knew abuse was taking place, right? Last I checked, only 21 states report having an elder abuse registry on perpetrators. Less than half maintain a central abuse registry. As Dr. Chapek mentioned, physicians do not screen early for red flags indicating potential disease. They chalk it up to aging. Well, you know, you are getting old. Fewer medical students than ever entering geriatric medicine. Residency programs are actually shutting down. How do you explain this? When our population is aging so rapidly right now, it's going to have an impact on every single one of us. Older adults are the biggest users of prescription drugs, but drug trials are often tested on younger populations. It's the same with marketing. And some will say advertising and marketing and TV shows and all of that are getting better, more positive, but I'm going to argue the opposite, because what I think they're interpreting as better is me interpreting this anti-aging movement. You know, huge business, booming business. It perpetuates a culture that views aging as negative. We need to be anti-aging, right? How do we change this? Well, let's start with language. It's very powerful, as we all know. Older adult is the term that most, what do you call yourselves? What do you like to be called? Older adult, senior citizen? Older adult is the term most used at present. But it turns out this question about what to call old people really presents a conundrum, because everybody has a different opinion. And even people who have studied aging for years can't agree on what to call somebody in older years. So apparently older adults is the most acceptable, I'm told, at the moment, but a large national study was recently done, and the term seniors was tolerable. Likewise for elders, everything else that we've all heard, golden years, silver tsunami, geriatrics, forget about those. Those are out now. And much of it is, of course, culture bound, as many things are. So the term elder, for example, is actually a sign of respect in tribal nations. Wow. That was interesting. It was, pointing out this important point, I guess. Many perceive aging and death as normal in the tribal communities as part of the life cycle. And maybe that's part of it. They're not as afraid of dying, maybe, as other cultures. What term do you prefer? Just what term makes you angry? Somebody shout out one that makes you mad.
Old biddy.
Old biddy. I don't like that one either. I like to think that the difficulty in settling on a common term is because we, as a huge demographic, are wildly diverse, and it defies being labeled and categorized into nice, neat little boxes. Who likes to be labeled here? Nobody likes to be labeled, right? So I've come to the conclusion that it might be best to just simply ask people, what would you like to be called? What do you like to be called? And what you want to be called might be different than what Lori wants to be called. I traveled, and that's okay. Why can't we have multiple, let's make this person centered. I traveled with a church group once to an Indian reservation to both work and learn. And one day I asked one of our tour guides, who was Native American, what do you prefer to be called? Because our group was struggling with labeling that population. He said, I like to be called a human being, which, it's true. So we're all struggling with stereotypes. You've all heard these, probably said some of them yourself. Younger people see older people as self-absorbed. Older people see younger people as self-absorbed, entitled, lazy, whereas older people are seen as grumpy, slow, senile, or wise. Does anyone know an individual who is chronologically old, but has the maturity of a child? I know a lot of these people, okay? Or a teenager, the maturity of a teenager. We need to change this and call it out. Be a language buster, a myth buster. Don't buy into these myths or allow others to perpetuate them. We have to call out people on AgeAlive, confront the stereotypes, get brave, and make some noise. Historically, some of these terms have been generated by advocates. There's something called compassionate ageism. So that by social workers, we got the school social worker. I'm a social worker who were fighting to secure funding and support for older people. And to do so said they need help because they're frail, they're poor, they need assistance, they need financial aid. This is how we got Social Security and Medicare. Right there. So I don't have an answer. I have my own opinions, clearly. I'm just asking you to think about it as you fight for change. Has anyone ever said something to you that sounded ageist? We have to get comfortable speaking up. That makes us nervous. Most of us we don't like confrontation. We don't like to call people out on something that's bothering us. I think all we need is the language and practice. So if we had time, I'd like to do a call-in response, where I'll yell out something that's really ageist. And you have to practice coming back at me. How would you respond? And I challenge you when you get home to play this, play it with your partner or your kids and say something really ageist to them, or have them say something ageist to you, and practice. What would you say in return? And get used to speaking up. It's how we're going to shatter these myths. Little more food for thought. Okay. Are these things ageist or discriminating policies? How about mandatory retirement? What do you think of that? Ageist?
Yeah.
Or based in, physiological change and fact that, our eyes there's still age mandatory retirement for pilots, for example. In other countries, the mandatory, we did a study on mandatory retirement policies around the world. And in very progressive countries like South Africa, university professors still have mandatory retirement. And I think it's age 60. And I'm thinking, wow, I would have been booted out several years ago. So take a look at this list. We won't spend a lot of time on it, but think about it. Are these ageist policies or good policies? It makes it a little more difficult to discern what is ageist and what is not. So we're in this gray area now. And are some forms of discrimination positive? How do you feel about senior citizen discounts? Does it? They're good, right? Yeah, absolutely. Anybody here run in marathons or, races? Are you in like a senior category?
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
I don't have a problem.
No, I mean, would you like to run with the people that are 20 years old?
No, I.
So-
Started.
So, it just raises these questions.
Get an advantage.
You get an advantage, but, there are things that go the other way too. But there's concern here about disproportionate political power, pitting funds for aged people against the people with disabilities or the young. What about driving tests? Older drivers are safer than any other age group. No special testing for the young, but the older drivers have to have special testing every year. So the problem here is we're treating older adults as a homogeneous group that ignores diversity and individual needs. And the backlash is to scapegoat the elderly as a burden on society. So we have to shatter aging policies too. This I already mentioned, compassionate aging. It's well-meaning, sort of like you look great for your age, Laurie. It's well-meaning, but it does reinforce stereotypes. And a lot of the people in this room are in the social service field, right? AERP's back here. Woohoo, I saw that. We have to be careful about this compassionate ageism. And ask ourselves, are we perpetuating the problem? So I've already talked a little bit about this. It's happening at every level. How do we shatter it? Well, individually, we can do these things. Learn the facts. And engage in support lifelong learning. We happen to have one. AgeAlive has a lifelong learning program. We have a couple of them, actually. So learn the facts. What's normal aging? What's not normal aging? We have to be what's the slogan? Be the change we want to see, right? Develop intergenerational relationships, organize, advocate, report ageist things that you're hearing in the newspaper, write op-eds, start a movement. In society, again, educate, educate, educate. We have to increase awareness and public education. We have to start young. You know that kindergartners have been known to make really ageist statements. Where's that coming from? They're not born with that. And we need it in our K-12 schools. We have to start young. And it's not about respecting, you need to learn how to respect your elders, right? It's not about respecting older adults. It's about respecting human beings, respecting the worth and dignity of people of all ages. Because if it's just about respecting your elders, then again, we're dividing them and us. And we're perpetuating these labels that we don't want to perpetuate. So I'm going to move on. I already talked a little bit about this, making it personal. Try to remember what's good about life, the attitude and the gratitude. Cultivate the common threads of optimal living, which again, I mentioned them earlier, a sense of well-being, a sense of identity, a sense of connection to community, engagement in meaningful activities. Every one of us throughout time has needed and wanted to have a sense of well-being, and that's what well-being is all about. those key values. It's also about how we model what we preach and value, how we apply self-affirmation and value to ourselves and our own aging. So just for a minute, remember what's good about getting older. So you tell me, what's good about getting older?
Those discounts.
Those discounts, right? Dr. Chopik mentioned several of them.
Experience.
Here we go. I got real fancy and then I forgot about it and Luke pointed this out to me here. Here's a few just to think about.
Experience more life. Experience more life.
That's right. Hobbies, volunteer work.
There you go.
There you go. Right?
That was important because my mom's 70, and at this point, she says whatever she feels like. She wants to do.
Yeah. No filters.
My dad, she's pure, she was accumulated for her whole life, now she retired after 33 years, and she is very eccentric. So-
Yeah. And she wasn't before,
Well, she was, but she had modeled her
but she's cut
behavior,
loose now.
you know,
Yeah, okay.
society.
It does. Thank you for that case example.
People think.
Yeah, that's a big one for,
Sleep in.
oh, you can sleep in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get up for work, that's what I am.
See, now the ideas are coming. We should list them all off. I wish we had time because there's so many things.
I got rid of my alarm clock.
Yeah.
More
You don't care
secure.
what other people think.
You don't care as much about what other people think, right? That one is liberating.
You have your own calendar. You can make choices. You can say yes to whatever you want to because you've got time
Right.
that you didn't have before.
Yeah. It's important, right? You have more choices. Now that's for the people that, whoa, there you go. Always comes back to that. Okay. What I like to do is break into pairs and you talk to each other and you ask each other questions like, okay, how old is old? How old do you feel? But Bill already mentioned that earlier, so we're not going to do that. You got to learn the facts. On a personal level, early assessment and treatment of problems is critical. What are the red flags that something's not right? And what can you do about it? We're tempted, all of us, I think, if you're feeling a little forgetful, as I often am, it's, immediately the fear jumps, maybe I'm developing dementia. Maybe I have Alzheimer's disease. When really my brain is just way too full, right? Trying to manage too many things. Because how many people at age 30 or 40 years get forgetful sometimes? Is there anybody in this room that never gets forgetful?
They forgot.
So when you if you're young, and we have some young people, and you get forgetful, do you instantly think, oh my God, I'm getting Alzheimer's disease? This must be dementia. No, it's not normal aging. Okay, so get it checked out. There are so many examples of this. Incontinence, falls. These are not normal aging. There's something going on. You need to get it checked out. Establish some financial and legal security as you can. Retirement planning is important. See a financial advisor if you haven't. It's not too late. It's never too late. Get all of your legal affairs in order. Living wills, power of attorney for healthcare, those sorts of things. The more you prepare, the better your aging experience is going to be. So I jumped ahead of myself. These come from the Gray Panthers, and they still exist, by the way. I think they were formed in the 60s, but they're still around. And then our friend Robert Butler. These are some ideas for them, from them, about how to shatter ageism. But once again, a lot of it comes back to education, education, education. I've already talked about this a little bit, but we have to educate everybody, not just the young kids, not just the doctors. And I teach them, you know, I'm in medical school, right? But we have to teach them as well. We also have to teach the mail carriers, the attorneys, the law enforcement people, the churches, the legislators, for crying out loud. It's a lot of education that needs to happen at the individual level and at the community level, at the institutional level, at the state level, at the policy level, and make some systems changes. We have to change the policies that continue to promote and perpetuate systemic, historical, insidious ageism. And make sure to change the systems that keep it embedded in our psyche. More on education. Mariana's gonna take PDFs of all of these presentations and put them on our website so that you can have access to them. These are some ideas for educational programs that are already in existence, and I urge you to check them out. Community action education approaches, and again, summits, rallies, public service announcements, radio, TV coverage, speakers bureaus, volunteer programs, media blitzes. AgeAlive is actually trying to do all of these things. And we invite you to join us. There are great toolkits. I think AARP has a toolkit on shattering, Disrupt Aging is the name of their program. Some of these things can be generated internally. Others could be done on a larger scale in partnership with organizations, and we are always ready to partner. I just have a couple more slides left. Advocacy takes many, many forms. Here's some of them right here. Public advocacy can be done in big ways, but a lot of people don't like to, you know, be in the limelight, draw attention to themselves. So advocacy can also be done in very small ways, even if it's like a t-shirt or a bumper sticker or a little pin that you wear. And Jim has got lots of pins for us. We should have brought them to hand them out. We just heard from 3 stellar researchers. We need the research. It's critical. Little has been done, as Dr. Chapik was saying, around research related to aging. Think of research as a form of advocacy, and these research gems as activists, because that's what they are. I am proud of the research being done at MSU. I really am. I'm proud of authors like Dr. Monson in the back who make us challenge what we think we know about aging, and not only writes about it, but is passionate and proactively promotes her work. She is an activist. She is an activist and an advocate. So what can you do? What can we do to shatter ageism together? One big thing that you're going to learn about in just a few minutes is to promote age-friendly communities in universities. That's advocacy. That's activism right there. Everything we just talked about. Think big, think small. What can we do about our own attitudes, our interpersonal relationships, our institutions, our society, our government, each in our own small way? And I am really looking forward to this next panel over here. Because they're going to share a lot of really concrete ideas on how we make and create our community to be age friendly. It's where the rubber meets the road. It's age inclusivity, age practices celebrated in every facet of everyday lives. And that is how it should be. So I believe your panel is going to be very inspiring. And then finally what? Okay, yes, videos. I usually intersperse these throughout my presentation. These are just a lot of fun. Some of them are AARP. AARP is churning out great videos, and I use them in my programs. That top one, just treat yourself to it. It'll be inspiring and it'll give you a laugh. And then this wonderful project, number 2, again, it's so inspiring. Just go to that website and learn about what these teenagers are doing in Canada. Every one of those is either thought-provoking or they'll make you smile. So treat yourself to those. And then I'm going to close just by circling back to the beginning of what I was saying. And that is that ageism really does undermine much of what we in this room hold dear and what we hope to achieve. And fighting it has to be the starting point of everything we do, not on the periphery, not an add-on. It has to be what we're attacking right at the beginning and being aware of that. We're the ones that can make this happen. So look around, do what you can. Let's make our communities inclusive. Let's stay gentle to ourselves and to each other, and then make our communities supportive of all people, regardless of age. So thank you for your attention.